everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast. My name is Ashley Stewart, and this is Awareness with Ashley. I have started doing a quote every week that kind of speaks to me, and this week is a really, really special one, actually. It's a really, really important one that I want to talk about, and so I happened to find this, actually, the other day, and so the quote this week, and actually the title of this, is how chronic illnesses like IIH and migraines are just hurdles on your journey in life. They don't define you, they're not your identity, they're just part of this story that makes it a little bit more challenging. So the quote is this, it's by someone named Glenn Schweitzer, I believe is how you pronounce the last name. Behind every chronic illness is just a person trying to find their way in the world. We want to find love and be loved and be happy just like you. We want to be successful and do something that matters. We're just dealing with unwanted limitations in our hero's journey. So I love this quote for so many different reasons that I'm going to get into during today's video, but I wrote down a few that stuck out to me. One of the things that I take away from this quote, and one of the things that I wanted to bring up with this quote, is that none of us want to be sick and unable to function. People think that staying home all day would be the best thing ever, but the truth is, it's isolating and frustrating. Sure, like the first few days that you have off or whatever, that you can just relax are great. But after a few days, you tend to want to do something. Yeah, staying at home is great because you kind of have the time to do what you want to do. But when you have a chronic illness like IIH or migraines and you're having a rough time with them, you're basically stuck in bed in a dark room by yourself, unable to do anything. It is not a life that you want. Sure, it's nice when you kind of are feeling a little bit better and you can do something like take on a hobby, like let's say you like doing puzzles, or let's say you're into a Netflix series right now that you'd rather be watching instead of being at work. Sure, we've all been there. We've all done that, or studying or whatever you happen to be doing. Sure, we've all been there. We've all been in that situation where you'd rather be doing anything but what you're doing. But the truth is that when you are struggling with chronic illness, you're in a ton of pain, you're exhausted, you can barely get out of bed. It is not the lifestyle that is a dream by any stretch of the imagination. The only thing you want in those periods of time is for that frustration and pain to go away. Like, it's not something that you want in that moment. We want your love and understanding as much as anyone else. Finding people who truly understand is so hard, and sometimes just being that person with a listening ear is the best person in our lives. One of the things I've talked about in the past is that we tend to lose people in our lives when we end up with a chronic illness. You'd actually be surprised at how nice strangers who you've never met in person can be in things like online forums and groups. And this is where I think support groups are really helpful. But at the same time, it can be just as kind of jolting to your worldview as to how quickly your family can turn and just not give you the light of day anymore because you're not doing a whole bunch, or they think you're just mooching off of someone in your life because you're not doing anything, when the truth is all you're trying to do is get better. All you're trying to do is to figure out what's going on and how can I improve the situation so I can move on with my own story. People just really don't get this at all. When I first got sick, the outpouring of concern was truly remarkable from both family and friends. But as your illness becomes chronic, this shifts. It goes from, OMG, are you okay? We heard what was going on, to, you're still dealing with that? It's time to move on. What are you doing with your life? People really don't understand that the word chronic, when it comes to chronic illness, means chronic. And along with that, chronic often means that there's no cure. It's not like a cold or an infection that gets better with time or medicine. It's often for life. Because it's often for life, that sympathy and empathy that you receive at the beginning drastically falls away. I actually equate it to like how YouTube videos often are. So like a really good hold at the start, and a lot of people tend to stick around, but then you'd have trouble holding them after about 30 seconds. And that's how it feels like when you have a chronic illness. It's like holding people's attention for longer than 15 or 30 seconds these days. People just move on so quickly from one thing to the next that they don't remember, or if they do remember, they're not that empathetic about it. And it's unfortunate, but it's the truth of the situation. As much as it can hurt that family can be the way they are with this, complete strangers, and your faith in humanity gets a little bit restored actually when you meet people who have never met you in person and they show you so much love. And sometimes those people, I swear, can be the best thing. And that's why having people share their stories is really important, because especially with these more rare conditions like IIH, and I consider chronic migraines a part of this as well, because you do tend to meet people actually who have migraines, but those with chronic migraines are very hard to find, and it's a completely different animal compared to regular migraines. So having someone that you can truly relate to and truly gets what you're going through is really important. It's really critical. It makes you feel seen and heard. You can vent to that person. It's just really, really important. We also want to find our purpose in life. IIH and migraines often occur when society feels like we should be in our prime and when we are searching for what we want to be. So I was diagnosed with IIH when I was 23, I believe. Yeah, 23. I was just at the end of my university education, actually, and this is because I actually took 2 years off from school and went back. And so I was actually just starting to become excited about the end of my university life, and this happened. And I said, I was young. So like when you're young, and I still am young, I'm only 28, I'm going to be 29 soon, but when you're young, you have your whole story ahead of you yet. And the reason why I'm using the word story is really critical to the quote, but it's truly what I believe now too. This is just a story. And so because of this being a story, you have your whole story ahead of you yet. You have so many chapters left. And to get hit with something like this, it feels like you get hit with a baseball bat out of nowhere, basically. It often interrupts schooling or when we are trying to start our own families, so people are often of childbearing age. It's often one of the criteria that is often met with, particularly IIH. Just because we are young, it doesn't mean we can't have health challenges. Even if society thinks we shouldn't have health challenges at our age. A lot of autoimmune diseases occur when you're young. You end up with certain autoimmune diseases, and it can be life-changing in so many ways, and even life-threatening in some situations, and particularly without medical intervention. You don't have to be old in order to have this happen. It's because of this conflict between society expectations and this totally untrue thing that people have that, oh, because you're young and you look healthy, you can't possibly have anything going on inside. And I think when it comes to this is why I like to say, be careful about your assumptions with someone. And be kind no matter who you meet out on the street. You don't know what they're going through in that moment. They could be having the hardest time of their life right now. Another reason I absolutely love this quote is because it talks about the hero's journey and acknowledges this as a story. I also like how it acknowledges this as just limitations or hurdles to cross as part of our story as well. It doesn't need to stop us, but it likely will slow us down, or it may also change our path from what we thought we might want to do. Now, I want to get into this because I haven't actually spent much time talking about this, but I do want to briefly talk about it because I think it is a really interesting thing. If I hadn't been diagnosed or ended up with IIH when I did, I don't know where I'd be at this point. And I almost guarantee that I wouldn't have found out that I absolutely love being in the pharmacy. So I often wondered, what is the reason for this? Why am I going through this? And I mean, this is the mind trying to put purpose to something that may have just been coincidental all along. And that's fine if some people want to believe that. But I do like to try and kind of give myself a reason for why I might be going through something. It does help with the rougher times, basically. As I was saying, when it comes to this, it is kind of nice to have this, well, maybe this was meant to be all along. Because would I have ended up enjoying everything that I enjoy these days if it wasn't for the fact of where I ended up? And the honest truth is, I really don't know, but chances are not likely. I don't think I would have ever found out I like what I'm doing and where I'm at if I hadn't been given the circumstances to be in the situation to begin with. Although it might change your path and really be tough in that way when it happens, because you have all of these dreams that you want to fulfill. We all have that. Some of us might think about it more than others, but because we all have this, it's really nice for me to have that feeling of satisfaction that maybe there was a whole reason to all of this. Because looking back, I was like, I've just spent my last 4 years trying to get this education, and now I'm gonna have to give it all up, basically. And I was just relieved to graduate. Because of how sick I was for my final semester of school, I was honestly scared I wasn't going to meet requirements to pass. And I had a very loaded last semester when it comes to like the classes that I was taking. And so I was just relieved to be able to meet the requirements to graduate. I really didn't care how well I did. It may or may not end up working out that it is the way you dreamed of or the way you thought it might be. But maybe there's a reason and you just haven't found that out yet. For me, I feel like I found that reason now with where I'm at and how happy I am. And that's a really big thing for me. And although it's very much in my mind, basically, when it comes to my spirituality stuff and, how I experience particularly time and space now, and my journey with non-duality, it just being part of the story, it's still an important part of the story. I still want to be happy. I still want to experience success. And I feel like I've pretty much accomplished that now, at least in terms of career and all of that. So that's really, really nice to have that. And it's nice to know that there might have been a reason for everything, even if my mind has to put a reason to it. I don't know how else to word that. I hope that makes sense, though. I think the reason why I'm so happy is because this quote has kind of been fulfilled for me. So because I found what truly brings me happiness, and I have a job I actually like, which I feel like is going to be a career at this point. And, I have family that I care about, that I love, and I feel like I've had success despite all of these challenges. That's all that I've ever wanted. And I feel so fulfilled because of that. I know so many who are struggling that don't have that. They've never found that. I know people who've never found that who are healthy, though, too. So I guess the biggest thing that I want to stress with this is we are just the same as everybody else. But we have these major challenges that may make the ability to achieve some of these things just not possible. And for people and society to accept that, I guess is up to them, in my opinion. And society just is a problem sometimes when it comes to expectations. If there's one place I tend to rebel in life, it's societal expectations. I know that I'm not on the typical linear journey that a lot of people swear by, but I'm happy, and for me, I don't really care what other people think at this point. I am successful in my own view, and to me, that's all that matters. With that being said, thanks for joining me for this particular episode. If you're enjoying my content, please don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. You can find me across social media on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. So Instagram and TikTok are at Awareness with Ashley. This is where you'll get all the short video content. Twitter is at Ashley Stewart 94. And then Facebook is at Ashley Stewart, same as on YouTube. I think that's it. If you're listening on the podcast, be sure to like and give us a review. It helps boost the podcast up in ratings and get more listeners on my content. And I think that's everything I want to say. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.